Fearless the Year of Shadow teased the animated prologue for Shadow Generations that would release in 3 parts leading up to the game's release. And this is Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings. And before getting into this, I just want to say, whoa, I don't think anything could have prepared me for something like this. I don't think I can properly express all the emotion the short would get out of me, or anyone else who watched it. I explained before the Sonic series had a very turbulent depiction for a while, and it had a negative impact on many of its characters. And Shadow really got the bad end of this deal, taking a beloved and very nuanced character and boiling him down to something he was not. And this was very controversial to fans for a very long time, and I often feel sorry for Shadow's current voice actor Kirk Thornton, who's been voicing Shadow for about a decade now, and hadn't had any real opportunities to do anything meaningful with the character, and this short changed everything. And of course, there's lots of elements connecting to make this a reality, and that the third Sonic movie was in development with the plan to introduce Shadow and adapt his origin story. Takashi Iizuka thought it would be a great opportunity to make a new game to tie into Sonic Generations featuring Shadow, and to dedicate the year of 2024 to Shadow to coincide with the movie. And the game itself would be complemented by both Gerald Robotnik's journal and Dark Beginnings, both of which spared no expense diving into every aspect of related lore, no matter how obscure, and tying it all together with new info and story elements, making Shadow, Maria, and Gerald's story feel complete, allowing old fans who have loved this for years, and brand new ones just discovering the series, to all be caught up on things past and present. The animation takes a very unique art direction compared to the previous shorts, opting for 3D animation in the style of pseudo 2D instead of traditional hand-drawn animation. But it takes full advantage of this, for its large and detailed environments, its action sequences, its camera work, and the animation leans very heavily into an anime style with its toon shading and low FPS for character movement that snap to hold their poses. The full short is also included on the PlayStation version of Shadow Generations and includes motion animatics showing how all these shots were composed. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. We open on a very familiar looking scene with Shadow and Maria running down a hallway with urgency, but subverts your expectations by revealing this is an earlier event than the scene from SA2 and Shadow 2005, with Maria being excited to show Shadow something in one of the observation decks. Shadow seems confused, not understanding what Maria was so excited about, as she tells him about the Aurora Borealis, contrasting Shadow's reaction with enthusiasm and excitement over the beauty of seeing them from far above the planet in space. And it's in this moment when you realize the main flaw of Maria in the games. We never knew Maria in the games. We knew she lived on the Ark with Shadow, and was his only friend and was like a sister to him. We knew that she was loved by everyone aboard the Ark, and we knew the damage that her death inflicted on them, her last moments marking Shadow with PTSD. That was enough to drive a benevolent scientist like Gerald Robotnik into insanity, wanting to destroy the planet he spent his life to help and support, blaming its people for everything, sending Shadow on his revenge path. We knew what Maria meant to them, but we never knew her, which was why so many players never took her seriously, turning her death into a meme and Shadow's pain into edgy angst. But in Dark Beginnings, we see Maria for who she really is. For a sick girl with an incurable illness, she's so full of life, she's so enthusiastic and playful and caring. Instead of being told that, we experience that. And this is how Shadow saw her. Even the things he didn't fully understand, he could see that she saw the beauty and wonder in everything and everyone. While looking through the glass, she starts to pass out with Shadow catching her. In spite of her lively spirit, she's still ill, but even when struggling, she still puts on a smile for him. While she shares her desire to return to the Earth, Shadow contrasts this again, feeling being created on the Ark, he doesn't have a place on Earth. Shadow has always prided himself by his title of the ultimate lifeform, but what does that actually mean to him? It seems it's something to live up to, but Shadow is an artificial creation, a science experiment. He understands what he was made for and how important it is in that regard, but Shadow doesn't seem to hold much self-worth for himself. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do, and this aspect of him is one only briefly brushed during a flashback in Sonic Adventure 2. He wants to do what he was made for, but he doesn't think he's good enough. He is supposed to be the key to finding a cure for Maria. And as if an instant response to him being hard on himself, Maria jumps in with a tight hug to reassure him, and it's made very clear how their dynamic works. She is his emotional support, being the only one to recognize the struggles of his mental state and being there for him, while Shadow, in turn, is her physical support. He is very protective of her and can recognize when she is physically weak, seeing how fragile she is, even when she's not aware of it. They are each other's support. And then there's a distant explosion with an unexpected turn of events. The appearance of Emerald. For context, Emerald is a character from the game Sonic Battle on Game Boy Advance, and is the primary playable character alongside Sonic and friends. But in his backstory, Emerald was one of Gerald Robotnik's research projects on the Ark. It was a side story that didn't tie into Sonic Adventure 2, but the inclusion of the character here is welcomed, tying his story back into Shadow's past. Emerald at this point in time is destructive and dangerous, and Maria says it's heading to Grandfather's lab and telling Shadow he needs to stop it. And the moment she touches his hand, a corrupted, glitchy vision of gun soldiers appear for an instant, but Shadow shakes it off, and promises Maria he will handle it. Kirk Thornton's line delivery giving me chills.
I'll handle this. Just wait here. I'll be back. I promise.
And Shadow zooms off at impressive speeds towards Gerald's lab, where the professor is being held captive by Emerald. And the following fight is nothing short of stunning, with each action impactful, even showcasing Emerald's ability to copy data from other opponents and performing a spin dash after watching Shadow do it. And then Shadow punches so hard that reality around him cracks and shatters. Shadow tries to process this but is distracted by Gun below him, ready to raid the Ark, and Shadow states,
"They storm the Ark, destroy all evidence, but it's too soon. It's happening too quickly."
And then reality shatters again, and Shadow lands in a prison cell with equations scribbled all over the walls. And in the middle of it, hidden in the darkness, is Gerald, a light swinging back and forth, too quickly to get a good look at his face, and more of the corrupting glitch vision appears. The room extends with Shadow running aimlessly and then falling, and around him are red storm clouds, with shattered pieces from before surrounding him, and he can see them, the silhouettes on the clouds. It's her. The soldiers are chasing her. They start shooting, and the terrifying visual of Maria's silhouette shattering at her heart, while calling his name, and he calls hers, and the lights in the clouds around him take the shape of Black Doom's face with his clawed hand reaching out, and Shadow wakes up firing a Chaos Spear into a tree. It was a nightmare. Shadow stands in present day with a Chaos Emerald clutched in his hand, looking up at the sight of the moon still damaged from Sonic Adventure 2 with the Ark right beside it. Also, I think this is the first time since Sonic Adventure 2 that we've seen the moon in this state. It's kind of weird how they ignored that for so long. Shadow feels this was no ordinary nightmare, and wonders, could this be the doing of Black Doom? The main villain of Shadow's 2005 game, the donor of his alien DNA, and the one who tried to manipulate him into doing his bidding by showing Shadow visions of his past.
No, that can't be.
Shadow destroyed Doom, but
could he have survived?
And Shadow speeds off in search of answers, ending part 1. And when Shadow's speeding, he generates an orange electricity effect, not unlike what he and Sonic do in the movies. Does it just work like that now? I'd like to think it's from him holding the Chaos Emerald. The Chaos Emeralds are supposed to translate thoughts and feelings into power, and I'd say those were some pretty strong thoughts and feelings he was experiencing when firing off that giant Chaos Spear. Part 1 ends on a shot of the broken moon and glitches to a black screen, while Part 2 does the opposite on a full moon. The full version transitions directly between the two shots, and we are flashing back to the Ark 50 years ago again. And as Maria opens the door, the child version of Shadow 05's unnamed gun commander runs by, calling Shadow a freak, and Maria calls him Abe. Writer Ian Flynn had the idea to give him the name Abraham Towers, the name the character had in the Archie comics, and Sonic Team approved. The other option, Oliver Garden, may have been a bit of a stretch. Maria finds Shadow in that room staring at a Black Arms lava from behind the glass. Once again, Kirk does a fantastic job with his line delivery, with the quiver in Shadow's voice as he responds to Maria asking if he's
Are you alright?
Maria, I'm fine. It's just...
Shadow is a character we've gotten to know pretty well in the games, as well as his past and everything that makes him him. But Dark Beginnings highlights a side of him I don't think too many people have considered before now. The reason he distances himself from others, why he's so cold. Shadow is full of insecurities, social anxiety, and has very low self-esteem. Shadow's mental health is very fragile. I don't know if this was the original intent of his character or if it's being recontextualized here, as in present day we are made more aware of taking care of one's mental health compared to 2001. How so many people struggle in invisible ways that not everyone else understands, which is probably another reason why so many people connect and relate to Shadow. He says, staring into the eye of the lava, he may look like a hedgehog, but he is really no different than this heartless, ugly thing. And young Abe being afraid and calling him a freak doesn't help matters. And this shot visualizes Shadow's feelings, with a vignette closing in around both him and the lava, as both the room and Maria fade away. To Shadow, he is alone. But Maria rushes up and hugs him from behind again. Seeing this a second time assures the audience that this was something she did regularly, that when everything seemed dark and hopeless, she was always the light that assured him everything was gonna be alright, and tells him he has a big heart and that it's difficult for him to express it, but deep down, he really cares. And that immediately threw me back to a video I made in 2021 discussing Shadow's mischaracterization in his more recent appearances, where I said, and quote, "And has been shown time and time again, as much as he doesn't want to show it, he actually cares about others, and a lot more than you'd think." Specifically showing the scene in SA2 where a tear rolls down his face in his cutscene with Amy. And that leads to the other thing I wanted to point out. Maria quickly hugging him from behind is a callback to another scene from SA2 of Shadow and Amy, when once again Shadow is focused on his own delusion, Amy sneaks up from behind hugging him, leaving him frozen in shock. It's a funny gag in the original game where she thought Shadow was Sonic, but there is no doubt in my mind that Maria doing this in Dark Beginnings is 100% intentional, and I can't stop wondering what that scene was like from his perspective when he froze. Maria believes Shadow feels lost, but one day he will find more friends he can trust. Fits for the next scene as we cut back to present day to another returning location, this time being Eggman's pyramid base from Sonic Adventure 2, where Shadow breaks in and fights off an army of samurai egg pawns, but turns out he's not the only one there, as we see E123 Omega firing rounds at the egg pawns, shortly followed by Rouge the Bat. By this point, these two have been fighting alongside each other for so long, they banter during it so casually. Rouge says she's there to gather intel for G.U.N, with Omega joining her as backup, and Shadow was looking for a shuttle to get to the Ark, but there is no longer one here. A bigger robot shows up and Omega calls out, "I call dibs." That's how you know Ian Flynn wrote that line. He's always made Omega into comedic relief, and I'm all for it. I consider this growth from his character in Sonic Heroes where he was all serious, but now he's mellowed out. This is just enjoyment for him. Love you, Omega. All three team up to take out the robot in no time, showcasing how great Team Dark work as a unit. As the dust clears, Rouge suggests that she can get Shadow a ship, but in return, he has to come to Sonic's birthday. To which Shadow is less than ecstatic. Rouge says all this while slowly floating in midair without her wings moving at all. Taking his sigh as a yes, she asks if he's interested in raiding a gun base, and Part 2 ends. Part 3, with the trio breaking into a gun facility where a space shuttle is kept, Rouge starts working the computer while Omega comedically hops in with part of a gun hunter robot stuck to his foot, and the heavy dog boss from Shadow 05 shows up, and Omega goes after it because he's got dibs. Crashing through the glass with his Gatling gun rolling along the ground and starts firing, but a missile goes right past him and is caught in midair by Shadow, who aims it back before teleporting and catching it again and jamming it right into the heavy dog. It's shaken but still flying, and sends tons more missiles back at Shadow, dodging them all, and pulls out a Chaos Emerald for a Chaos Control, destroying them all in the span of a second. Sorry, just so much excitement and action going on. There's only so much awesomeness a Sonic fan can take. Shadow breaks open the cockpit and looks like he's about to punch the pilot, but smashes their eject button instead, sending them out with a parachute, while the heavy dog itself explodes in the background and Shadow starts walking towards the screen, not even looking behind him. Kind of mirroring some of the moments in the movie DLC. I didn't have to do a play-by-play of everything that happened. I could have just said, and then there's a fight sequence, and left it there. But how can I not? This entire thing has been super engaging. Shadow walks into the shuttle while Omega says, "I wanted to destroy it." I get you, Omega. I get you. Shadow straps in and Rouge initiates the launch sequence. The shuttle launches, but the unauthorized launch sets off a warning, and turrets and beetle drones lock on ready to fire. Rouge calls out to Omega to do something, but not before a human hand presses down on the control panel beside her.
"This is Commander Abraham Tower. All forces, stand down."
Following up his child appearance in the flashback, we get the full return of the gun commander for the first time since he was introduced in Shadow the Hedgehog. The same man who spent his whole life blaming Shadow for everything that happened on the Ark, who did everything in his power to bring Shadow down in that game, stepped right in and used his authority to let Shadow through. Rouge hands over the intel she promised, plugging a drive into the control panel, where a holoscreen appears displaying the Time Eater. I'm fascinated by the implications of that. We don't really know what happened after Sonic Colors where Eggman discovers it, I suppose he and his younger counterpart would have done some work on it. I mean, the intel on it is in his databanks accessible from his facility, and this interaction kinda confirms my belief while Rouge does work for G.U.N, she just kind of gets away with doing whatever she wants to get the mission done no matter how many rules she breaks, simply because she's that good and always gets the job they want done. And the turn this character has taken is an interesting direction. He and Shadow may not be on the greatest of terms, but he's willing to put everything behind him, knowing he can trust Shadow and whatever he must be doing would have a good reason, and that they didn't have to sneak behind his back and he would have supported this. Rouge responds with,
"When has Shadow ever asked for permission?
You could have talked him down, Rouge.
There's only one person who could ever do that."
True.
That's also interesting because breaking in here and taking the shuttle was Rouge's idea, not Shadow's. And if it was his, she totally could have talked him down if she wanted, because he actually listens to what she thinks. Which is probably why she smiled here. She just likes enabling him. And on another point, there actually was another person who was able to talk him down, and that was once again, Amy Rose, tipping the tide of Shadow's redemption in SA2. And I suppose neither Abe nor Rouge would have known this. But even so, I'm confident in my belief it wasn't purely just Amy who was breaking through to him in that moment.
Help us! Shadow, I beg you! Please do it for them! Shadow!
And then the song starts playing. This is Without You, and features on the OST for Sonic X Shadow Generations, as he makes his journey back to the place where so many memories haunt him, and starts visualizing the life he could have had if he and Maria could have gone to Earth together. No matter how much time has passed, no matter how much he has experienced on his own, he still can't let go of the only person who made him happy. The visuals of them laying down in a field of flowers under the starry sky is taken right from the movie, contrasting the fact that in the movie they were on Earth together looking towards the sky, and in the games they looked down on the Earth from above. The music and Shadow's facial animation convey exactly what he's feeling, and this just tugs at your emotions. And I know for a fact I'm not the only one feeling what he's feeling. The catch in your throat, the inability to form words, and holding back letting a tear shed. Every reaction to this that I've seen, everyone is affected the same way, because they know Shadow's journey. And here he is, visually vulnerable in a way you've never seen him before. Shadow pulls himself together with Kirk's line delivery once again perfectly expressing Shadow's feelings.
Stop that. That life was taken from me long ago. I need to focus on the mission at hand.
Shadow focuses on finding the threat aboard the Ark, and the short ends. The online version cuts to the credits with gameplay footage, while the in-game version cuts straight to the post-credit scene from the full online version. The Part 3 version doesn't include this. We cut back to the Ark where the camera pans out to show these fleshy tendons and 3 red eyes opening, zooming out to reveal the silhouette of Black Doom. And the in-game version starts its credits after this, but it has one more exclusive scene at the end.
When we can start our new lives on Earth, we'll see all the world has to offer and learn all there is to know firsthand. Won't it be lovely, Shadow?
Maria, I don't know if it will be right for me. I'm not like you. What if I can't find where I belong?
I believe in you. With your courage, you can do anything. And if you ever have trouble, you can always count on me to help you.
The in-game version on PlayStation also includes the Animatic version of Dark Beginnings, where the short plays out mostly the same but with a couple alternate versions of scenes, and 1 or 2 that were cut from the final version. In the Animatic version, Shadow takes Maria with him to Gerald's lab, leaving her outside the door. Look how cool the sketches for the fight choreography with Emerl is. When flashing back to Shadow in the lava, Abe is absent from this scene as he was originally introduced later. After Team Dark takes down the big robot, their conversation is extended with dialogue that goes unused in the final version. Rouge asks Shadow to continue about the Black Arms returning, she brings up the shuttle at a gun base instead of the scene cutting off there, and there's more of an exchange on going to Sonic's birthday.
What do you want?
Once you're done with your mission, You have to hurry back and join me at Sonic's birthday party.
Why?
Because the look on both your faces will be priceless.
She also asks Omega what he wants to do, and he's happy to destroy more robots regardless if they're from Eggman or Gun. And Team Dark sets off, transitioning into a deleted scene that introduces young Abe in a classroom setting. Which makes sense, he and Maria are just kids that were on the Ark for a few years and still needed an education, as does Shadow, as he was still a recent creation and needed to be taught about the world he was born into. This aspect is still featured in Gerald's journal, where he also refers to Maria as Shadow's guide to the world. The scene serves to show how Abe and Shadow don't get along, which was heartbreaking for Maria because she loved both of them. They were like her little brothers, and even though they didn't like each other, they were willing to put things aside for her benefit. This transitions back to Team Dark running towards the Gun base and recapping Shadow's history with Gun to the viewers, and the dialogue is moved to the scene where they've already stormed the base off screen and are taking the elevator to the control room. Makes sense, as these two scrapped scenes alter the pacing, where the final version would have transitioned between part 1 and 3. In the animatic version, instead of the door opening, Omega smashes it open with an extending bender hand, which looks cool, but I don't believe this is an ability Omega has ever done before, so makes sense that it was removed. He also halts Shadow from entering for a moment as Rouge giggles. Not sure why. Rouge says she can initiate the launch from here and asks Shadow if he can fly it, to which he responds with,
Of course, I am the ultimate life form.
Unless that shoots you down first.
An LZ-12R Blue Falcon. They must be really scared.
Rouge tells Omega to cover Shadow till she can get the launch going and promises coordinates to another Eggman base.
This exchange is acceptable.
Something about this moment reminds me of a similar moment with Android 16 in Dragon Ball Abridged,
These parameters are acceptable.
which a few of the people in the creative team are fans of. And I like Omega saying,
Come, Shadow, let us ruin their night.
but I see why this scene was trimmed the way it was. With the elevator dialogue moved to this scene, you can visually see Rouge is initiating the launch sequence, so she doesn't have to tell the audience nor Shadow and Omega, since that's the reason they're there. And the moments with Shadow talking confidently or smiling when preparing to take down a foe is within character of him, but does not fit for this moment when Shadow was very serious and only concerned with getting to the Ark as soon as possible, wanting to waste no time finding out if the threat is real. Also, while most of the animatics are hand-drawn, they do mix in 3D space with objects, environments, and camera work, and something that amuses me is that the Blue Falcon is straight up the 3D model from Shadow's 2005 game, low-res textures and all. During the fight, there's an extended moment after Shadow uses Chaos Control where there's a lot more missiles in his way before he can take down the Falcon, and unleashes a huge barrage of Chaos Spears. It looks awesome, but was probably cut because much like with Omega's hand, this is not something Shadow's ever been able to do before. Typically in gameplay, he can only produce one spear at a time. As a matter of fact, when you play Shadow Generations, you acquire the Doom Spears upgrade that allows you to fire multi-targeting shots. But in boss fights against Shadow, he's been able to charge up and throw a handful of Chaos Spears at a time. But even so, it's entirely possible since Shadow uses the power of the Chaos Emerald to slow time, maybe the intent of this shot is that he can also use the power to upgrade his spears, but I kind of see why this is cut. It's not something Shadow has ever done before, and it's kind of an overpowered move. However, it doesn't go entirely to waste. I think much like the Flower Field, there may have been more communications between the Dark Beginnings team and the movie team, because we see a very similar move in a similar sequence in the movie performed by Super Shadow. And I think tying such an awesome move like that to Super Shadow is a much better choice instead. There's another brief extended scene where Shadow uses his teleporting to attack the Falcon from every angle. It's just one gunship, Shadow. How much punishment does it need? Also, this one frame of Shadow looking terrifying. The final scene is edited a little differently. There's another music track playing entirely instead of Without You. Presumably it hadn't been composed or finalized at this time, and that scene exclusive to the PlayStation post-credits scene was originally used here. I think I prefer the final version a lot more, but what I do think we missed out on was this extended line of dialogue after Shadow pulls himself together.
I thought I'd left my past behind me. Here it is, haunting me and prompting me to act. I need to focus on the mission at hand.
You know, so many people questioned, oh, I thought Shadow put his past behind him. Seemingly they would have needed that line, and I feel it would have been more impactful too. I would have edited it something like this.
Stop it. My life was taken from me long ago. I thought I left my past behind me. Here it is, haunting me, and prompting me to act. I need to focus on the mission at hand.
At the end of Shadow 2005, Shadow vows to move on from his past, but it's not that simple. You can say you're moving on, to not define your present by your past, to not spend every moment thinking about what happened to you before, to stop mourning someone you lost years ago, to not let any of it drag you down. But it doesn't just go away. You're not just going to forget all of it. It still happened. It's still what led to you becoming the person you are now. A cut can stop bleeding and the skin can heal over, but the worst of cuts will still leave a scar and it becomes part of you for the rest of your life. Shadow won't love Maria any less because he's accepted she's gone. That doesn't change the impact she had on his life. Shadow has moved on, but what are you supposed to do when your past comes back to confront you? Even Rouge brings this up in game, and that's kind of the point of Shadow Generation. Another chance to do right by Gerald and Maria, and the parting gift of a proper goodbye and definitive closure, and that's something real special. Dark Beginnings as a whole leaves me speechless. For years, I just had to sit down and accept that the people behind the Sonic series had no care for the emotional value of the series and all the investment of its characters, and we just had to put up with contradictions to past events, having all the characters we love reduced to one-dimensional extras while Sonic spouts unfunny jokes. So seeing where we are now, there's nothing more I can say than, wow. The characterization of everyone here ties to elements from past games that serve a functional purpose in the narrative rather than, hey, remember this level from that one game? You could play Shadow Generations without watching this and lose nothing. But Dark Beginnings is just so rewarding to watch as a fan and, well, stay tuned and stay awesome.